Are you sitting somewhere like this, but you need to control gear like this in another space? I just solved this problem for myself, so let's talk about how I did it and what I used to do that. So ultimately I'm talking about controlling devices with IR that might be away from where you're actually interacting with the remote or flashing in a room. In my case, here in my living room we predominantly use an Apple TV, and it's plugged directly into the television. And while I do have Control 4 system and these awesome fancy and fairly expensive Neo remotes to select my sources and control the room and all of that sort of stuff, when you're using something like an Apple TV, I quite honestly find this to be the superior experience most of the time. And I'll probably make a separate video on that coming up, but suffice to say there are some capabilities in this remote that you can't get out of the Control 4 remote for an Apple TV. However, my source device is plugged into the television. I then come out of the TV via optical, run through the walls down to my rack and into the Anthem SDR that does the processing for the living room. So the processing, the amplification, and all that is away in the rack, but the source devices, the display, and the speakers are in this room. And because I'm using optical, I can't use HDMI CEC, so my only option to get volume control and mute off onto the Anthem SDR off of this remote is infrared. And of course, it's not going to flash through the floor of the house into another room. So that's my specific use case, but it wouldn't really matter. This would apply to just about anything. As long as you have the infrastructure to receive, pass, decode, and reflash the IR signals somewhere else, you can do anything you want. More than volume control, you could do complete device control. You could do a one-to-many as well, where you have multiple sources and multiple devices that you're controlling through that one single IR link. And so this has been bugging me for a while. Again, most of the time when I'm watching television and stuff here in the living room, I'm using the Apple TV, and I want to use this remote because you can swipe and you can use Siri and all the other features that it has. But I hate using multiple remotes. Putting this down, having this one out, that sort of thing, where I can just turn my whole living room onto my Apple TV with a push of a button on a wall, still via Control 4, and then just grab this thing and leave the Neo tucked away on its charger until I really have something more advanced or whatever that I need to use it for. So I went looking for a solution, how to do this, how to receive the IR signal, how to extend it all the way down to the rack, how to decode it and get a flashing IR signal onto that Anthem. Ultimately, the way that I ended up doing it is with BAFX products that I found on Amazon. So this company makes a whole bunch of different IR-oriented items in terms of receivers, wiring adapters, and flashers and repeaters and that sort of thing. So ultimately how I solved it is I bought two different things from BAFX off of Amazon. I bought an all-in-one infrared repeater kit with extender cable that's capable of controlling 4 devices. So that includes the IR receiver with a kind of branching wire that's USB that you would plug into like the back of your television where you might have this affixed in order to power it. And then that wires out with a like 3.5 millimeter mono adapter plug. Now it comes with 4 IR flashers that you can jack right into there if you had more, like say you were doing this all in a single cabinet and you didn't need to actually extend the signal or send it anywhere else, and that's great. And you can buy this little kit powered right off of your TV with USB in single flashers, double flashers, and then the quad. But the quad is the only one that actually has, where it's not wired all in one. The single flasher and the dual flasher, it's all one wire system. But the quad has the brake piece in it, which is the key for how I was able to take this all the way from the living room down to the rack. So in order to do that, I also bought the BAFX Cat 5 adapter kit for IR repeaters. So that thing was all of like $11 as well. So I solved this problem for the entirety of about $30 all in. The Cat 5 adapter kit comes with 2 little pigtail adapters with male 3.5 millimeter jacks and then female Ethernet jacks. So ultimately what I have is the IR repeater powered off of the TV and its female 3.5 millimeter receptacle into one of these male 3.5 millimeter Ethernet adapters. So let's take a look at how this exactly works and is wired up in practice from the living room all the way down to the rack. So you can see the receiver there hanging down underneath the television. This is an LG G2 and it doesn't have much of a bezel around it, so I didn't actually have kind of this bigger receiver stuck around the front of the TV itself. I wanted to obscure it a little bit, so I kind of taped it up and hung it down behind the display. But it has a soft little green glow to it. It's not distracting even in a dark room, and you can see it flashes red when an IR signal is received and being passed through. Obviously, if it's powered off, there's no light and no glow whatsoever. But let's take a look behind it and I can show how I have it wired up. So there's the receiver. Sorry if this audio isn't the greatest. I'm kind of sticking my head here behind the television. But you can see I have it just hanging straight down, a little black electrical tape holding it in place. I've got the extra wire there just spooled up, sitting above it. And then we kind of go down, up and around and along right here to get to the USB cable. That's the power. And then coming down here, and I kind of have this Velcro together. But there's the junction, the 3.5 millimeter junction. Female on this side, male on this side. And if I keep following the wires, there is my Ethernet Cat5 or Cat-X to 3.5 millimeter adapter with a very little short Ethernet cable jumpered in to the Ethernet wiring that runs down to my rack downstairs. So I have 4 lines from behind the TV down to the rack. I'm using one of them dedicated just for this, and it works like a charm. Nice and clean, taped up in place. Cable's not going anywhere. Doesn't get in the way of anything else behind here. It's a bit of a jumble of wires, but for as much as going on back here, this is actually a pretty clean, overall pretty clean cable job, I think. So let's go downstairs and see how it comes out on the other end. All right, so here we are down in the storage room. I have all kinds of wires throughout our whole house. We did a very structured and massive wiring project for a whole bunch of different stuff. But the 4 Ethernet cables coming down from the living room are amongst the wires that come through the rest there, down through the back of the rack. And then, of course, here's the processing, right? Downstairs, a floor in a room removed from where the actual sound and all of that is going. The Anthem STR here doing that living room processing, and a couple of amplifiers for the triad subs and the parasounds on the focals that are running the speakers back up in that room. So let's go behind here. And this might be a little bit tough to see, but this little orange cable here coming through, this is all Ethernet. It's a bundle. They're color coded. I've got orange, blue, green, and yellow because there's a variety of places through the house where I've got 4 drops. But in this case, I'm using the orange cable from the living room, routing kind of up through there and over in between the power cables. And then here is the other BAFX Ethernet to 3.5 millimeter. Again, there's that 3.5 millimeter jack plugged right into the back of the STR, into the IR input. So again, I could do this with a flasher. I could come off of that Ethernet cable and put a flasher on the front of the STR if I wanted to. Of course, again, my problem with that is if I was flashing Anthem IR commands, there's 2 Anthem products, and depending on how much flashing was going on, it might end up kind of mutually controlling them. I only tend to do volume control, volume up, down, and mute. I don't do power. Again, I do all of that through my Control 4 system. But if both rooms were being used and somebody was turning up the volume in the living room, I wouldn't necessarily want that to be turning up the volume in the theater. So preferable in that case to use the direct IR in. In most, I'd say medium to higher tier, premium tier AV gear, controllers and such like that, probably have a 3.5 millimeter IR in that you could use this for. But if I had more devices, I could get a many-to-one or a repeater box. BAFX has all of that stuff, and wire up flashers to everything discreetly. If I had my stuff tucked away in a closet somewhere or a cabinet, I could do that too. It just depends on your needs, your application, what you're controlling, and where it's at and how you want to actually control it. So there's a look at remote distributed control of devices from one room to another with IR via receivers, repeaters, and in this case not specifically, but blasters and IR output on the other end. Again, perfectly applicable to any type of hidden cabinet, closet, and you can go pretty far with this stuff depending on where you're at from a source perspective to a control perspective. So there were just some comments, actually just recently some comments asking about sending distributed IR control around. This is what I found is a pretty good solution for myself. 30 bucks, easy, makes that Apple TV remote completely usable in the living room. And now it's scalable, so if I need any other type of IR control down here from up there, I've got it. I just need to get a repeater box and such. It's very simple in this case because we're talking about one device. So there's no extra redistribution or whatnot. And taking the power to send that IR signal, somewhere on one side of this you would need power, and it makes it super easy to just plug it in to the TV and take power off of the USB port behind it. So, is this useful to you? Hopefully it is. Do you have some more involved type of IR distribution, repeating situation that you could use some guidance and such for? Ask away in the comments. I'd be happy to give any insight that might be helpful. Otherwise, yeah, go to Amazon, search for BAFX and IR, and you'll find a whole host of stuff, different devices and combinations of wiring and receivers and repeaters and adapters and all of that sort of thing to take care of your IR needs. And if you do, hey, look down in the description below, try the Amazon affiliate link. Try the Amazon affiliate link that I have available for that. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, do all that other stuff. And look for a whole bunch more stuff hopefully coming soon about Control 4 and controlling devices and more automation. And check out that home theater playlist as well for all of my videos related to audio video gear, home theater, dedicated living room, and all of it. Thanks so much.